The bar in Kepler 7 station smelled like every other bar in the galaxy. A mix of different species, different drinks, and different regrets all blended into one universal stink. Kexthar sat in his corner booth, the same one he'd occupied for the past 3 years, nursing a glass of something that burned going down. His scarred carapace caught the dim light, and the stump where his left antenna used to be still ached when the station's artificial weather changed. He noticed the young ones before they noticed him noticing. 3 cadets, fresh uniforms still creased, patches marking them as Coalition Defense Force. 2 Velkari like himself, and 1 Threxian with those big, curious eyes that species was known for. They kept glancing at him, whispering, working up courage for something. Kexthar knew what was coming. It always came eventually. The Threxian cadet approached first, his translator collar glowing softly as he spoke. "Excuse me, sir. Are you Commander Kexthar, from the 7th Fleet?" Kexthar didn't look up from his drink. "Used to be Commander. Just Kexthar now. Sir, we're studying the human war at the Academy. The instructors don't talk much about the actual combat. They just show us charts and strategic maps. But we heard you were there. At Epsilon Relay, at Gibraltar Station. We wanted to ask—" "No." Kexthar's voice was flat. The young Threxian's confidence wavered. One of the Velkari cadets stepped forward, mandibles clicking nervously. "Sir, we just want to understand. What were they really like? The humans? In battle?" Kexthar finally looked up at them. All 3 cadets stood straighter, trying to look military and proper. They were babies, probably not even born when the war ended 15 years ago. They had no idea what they were asking. "Go back to your table," Kexthar said. The cadets exchanged glances, disappointed. They were turning to leave when the bar owner, a one-eyed Kalrathi named Ven, shuffled over with a fresh bottle. He set it down in front of Kexthar with a heavy thunk. "Maybe it's time," Ven said quietly. His good eye studied his old friend. Maybe someone should know. Really know. Kexthar looked at the bottle, then at the cadets who had paused at Ven's words. He thought about the nightmares that still came. The sounds that woke him. The memories that never quite faded no matter how much he drank. "Sit down," he finally said to the young ones. "But don't interrupt. And don't ask me to stop once I start. You want to know about humans in combat? Fine, but you're going to hear all of it." The 3 cadets quickly slid into the booth across from him. Kexthar poured himself a drink from the fresh bottle and downed it. Then he began. 15 years ago, I was a young commander too, full of confidence, full of pride in the Coalition fleet. We'd kept peace in 400 systems for 3 generations. We knew how war worked. We knew the rules. Every species surrendered at acceptable casualty thresholds. Every species valued their soldiers' lives. Every species understood that war was about achieving objectives, not total annihilation. He poured another drink but didn't touch it yet. Then humanity achieved faster-than-light travel. They came out of their little system, all excited to meet the galaxy. We studied them from a distance first, like we do with all new species. They seemed soft, weak. No natural armor, no claws, no venom. They could barely survive on most planets without artificial support. Their homeworld had killed them with weather, predators, diseases, and disasters for their entire evolution. They seemed fragile. Kexthar's mandibles clicked in what might have been dark amusement. The Coalition made first contact. It went well at first. Humans were friendly, curious, eager to join galactic civilization. Then there was a border dispute. Some colony worlds in contested space. The kind of thing that usually gets resolved with diplomacy or maybe a small skirmish. The Coalition sent a fleet to enforce territorial claims. Standard procedure. Show overwhelming force, make the newcomers back down, establish the hierarchy. He finally took that second drink. I was second in command on the dreadnought Unyielding Resolve. We had 300 ships. The humans sent 50 to Epsilon Relay to contest our claim. We laughed. 50 ships against 300? They'd scan us, see they were outnumbered, and retreat for negotiations. That's what anyone with sense would do. The cadets leaned forward, completely silent now. They didn't retreat. We sent the standard warning. They responded with their own warning. Our commander opened fire. Disabling shots meant to cripple their ships without destroying them. To show them we could end this quickly if they didn't surrender. That's when we learned the first rule about humans. Kexthar's eyes went distant, seeing something far beyond the bar walls. They don't surrender when they're supposed to. That first human ship we disabled? It kept shooting. No engines, no shields, hull breaching. Crew dying from decompression. Still shooting. We destroyed it completely because it wouldn't stop. Then another one. And another. We kept expecting them to break, to run, to ask for terms. They just kept coming. He paused, his voice dropping lower. Their communications were open. We could hear them. That's when I heard the phrase that still haunts me. A human voice, calm like he was ordering food, saying, "Contact. Taking fire. Multiple breaches on decks 4 and 5. Engineering is gone. We're staying." Just like that. We're staying. His ship was dying around him and he was staying. The Threxian cadets' eyes were huge. But why? Didn't they know they would lose? They knew. That's what we didn't understand at first. They absolutely knew. And they stayed anyway. We destroyed 37 of those 50 human ships. We thought we'd won. We thought they'd learned. We sent boarding parties to capture the survivors from the remaining 13 ships. Get prisoners for negotiation. Keksthar's hand trembled slightly as he poured a third drink. The humans had rigged their ships to explode if boarded. They'd rather die than be captured. We lost 2 boarding craft and 300 coalition soldiers. That's when our commander decided to destroy the rest of them completely. Better than risking more of our people. He downed the drink quickly. We chased the last few human ships for 6 hours as they ran, caught them at the edge of the system, surrounded them, demanded surrender one final time. Their response came from their fleet commander, a human female. She said, "Tell your leaders that humanity does not yield. Tell them we know where you come from. Tell them we're coming." Then all 13 ships activated some kind of drive we'd never seen before and jumped away. We couldn't track them. The bar was quieter now. Other patrons had stopped their conversations to listen. That was our introduction to humanity at war. That was the easy part. That was before we understood what we'd started, before we knew what they really were. Kekthar looked at each of the cadets in turn. "You want to know what humans are like in combat? They're like nothing else in the galaxy, because they don't fight to win. They fight until there's nothing left of them. And sometimes not even then." The young Velkari cadet's voice was barely a whisper. What happened next? Kekthar reached for the bottle again. Next came the real war. And that's when we learned that humans are far, far worse than we imagined that day at Epsilon Relay. Keksthar's booth had attracted a small crowd now. Other veterans had drifted over, drinks in hand, faces showing they remembered too. The 3 cadets sat frozen, afraid to move and break whatever spell was keeping the old commander talking. After Epsilon Relay, the Coalition High Command met for emergency sessions. They decided humanity needed to be taught a lesson. A quick, decisive campaign. Show them the price of defiance. Make them accept their place in the galactic order. Kekthar laughed, but there was no humor in it. We had no idea what we were doing. No idea at all. He gestured with one of his manipulator arms, the gesture expansive and bitter. Every species in the Coalition follows the same basic rules of war. It's logical. It's civilized. When your forces take 30% casualties, you reassess. At 50%, you retreat. At 70%, you surrender. These aren't just guidelines. They're survival instincts. No species wants to lose its entire fighting force. Better to surrender, negotiate, save your soldiers for another day. The old Kalrathi bar owner, Ven, brought over another glass and sat down. Tell them about the dead battalion. Keksthar's antennae drooped. I was getting to that. 3 months into the war, we'd pushed human forces back to a fortress world they called New Kyoto. Beautiful planet. Mostly water with island chains. Strategic location. The Coalition sent 10,000 troops. Humans had maybe 2,000 defending it. Good odds by any measure. He drank slowly this time, remembering. We took the main continent in the first week. Humans retreated to the mountains. We surrounded them, cut off their supply lines, destroyed their communications array. Our scanners showed declining life signs in their position. After 2 weeks, we detected only 300 human soldiers still alive. Our commander sent the surrender demand. Kekthar paused, collecting himself. They said no, so we bombarded their position for 3 days. Missiles, plasma strikes, everything. When the bombardment ended, our sensors showed maybe 50 life signs, 50 out of 2,000. We sent ground forces to secure the position and process the survivors. Standard procedure. The cadets waited, sensing what was coming wouldn't be good. The humans had used the bombardment as cover. While we were congratulating ourselves, they'd snuck out through underground tunnels we didn't know existed, hit our supply depot, killed 200 coalition soldiers, destroyed enough supplies to feed our army for a month. Then they vanished into the wilderness. Kexthar's voice grew quieter, forcing his audience to lean in. For 3 more days we hunted them. Our scanners couldn't find them. They'd somehow figured out how to mask their thermal signatures. But they found us. Every patrol we sent got ambushed. Every supply convoy got hit. Every communications relay got sabotaged. We kept killing them. Our sensors showed their numbers dropping. 40 humans, 30, 20. He stopped, taking a long drink. After 3 days, our scanners showed only 5 human life signs in the entire operations area. 5 soldiers, 5. We had 8,000 troops left. Our commander was furious, embarrassed. He ordered total saturation. Find those 5 humans and end this. We sent 3 battalions, 1,500 soldiers. The other veterans around the booth nodded. They knew this story. Every veteran of the human war knew this story. Those 5 humans killed 83 coalition soldiers before we finally killed them. 83. In their final position, we found something that still gives me nightmares. They'd written a message on the wall in their own blood. Just 2 words in their language. We had it translated later. Kexthar's voice was barely audible now. It said, "Earth remembers, that's all. Just that." We'd declared them destroyed 2 weeks earlier. We'd killed 97% of their force. They'd lost the planet, lost the battle, lost everything, and they still fought until there was literally nobody left. We started calling them the Dead Battalion after that, the unit that died but didn't know it. One of the Velkari cadets spoke up, mandibles trembling. But that's just stubbornness. That's not strategy. That's just refusing to accept reality. That's what we thought too, Kexthar said. That's what we told ourselves. Humans were just too stupid or too proud to know when they were beaten. But then we learned about their medics. He gestured to a scar across his thorax. Human medics don't fight. They're non-combatants by their own laws. They wear special markings that identify them as medical personnel. In coalition forces, medical staff stay behind the lines, treat the wounded who make it back. Sensible, safe, efficient. Kexthar traced the scar with one manipulator. Human medics run toward the fighting. Into it, through it. They have one job. Get to wounded soldiers and bring them back. Doesn't matter how much fire they're taking. Doesn't matter how certain death is. They go anyway. I got this scar at the Battle of Torrens Moon. I was wounded, pinned down, 3 of my squad dead around me. Human forces had us surrounded. I was preparing to die with honor. His eyes went distant again, then I saw one, a human in white armor with red symbols, running straight through the crossfire toward one of his wounded. No weapon, just medical equipment. He got to his soldier, started treating him right there while the battle raged around them. I shot at him. Hit him twice. He ignored me. Just kept working on his patient. Another human ran over and dragged them both behind cover while a third human provided covering fire. Kexthar's voice carried a note of disbelief even 15 years later. They came back. 10 minutes later, different medic, same white armor with red symbols, running through the same kill zone to get another wounded human. I watched 3 medics get killed that day. Every time one died, another took his place. Eventually, my own forces rescued me, but I never forgot what I saw. They value their soldiers so much that they send their healers into certain death to save them. The Threxian cadet looked confused. But that's illogical. The medics are valuable, trained, rare. Why waste them? Because humans don't think like that. They have this phrase, "no man left behind." It means exactly what it sounds like. They don't leave their wounded or dead on the battlefield if they can possibly avoid it. They'll risk 10 soldiers to save one. They'll delay retreats to recover bodies. They'll negotiate prisoner exchanges even when they have the advantage. Kexthar refilled his glass, his movements slow. At first we thought it was a weakness we could exploit. Target the medics, make them afraid to rescue their wounded. Break their morale. But it had the opposite effect. Humans fought harder when their medics were threatened. We started seeing human soldiers doing suicidal charges to protect their medical personnel. Whole squads dying to buy their medics time to escape with the wounded. He drank again. That's when we started understanding. Humans don't calculate acceptable losses. They don't weigh strategic value against tactical cost. Every single human soldier knows that if they fall, their people will come for them. We'll die trying to get them. That certainty makes them fight like demons because they're not just fighting for themselves. They're fighting for every human who would die trying to save them. The bar was completely silent now. Even the background music seemed to have stopped. The worst part? After battles, we'd find human bodies positioned over other human bodies. Soldiers who'd used their own bodies as shields for their wounded comrades. Dead humans protecting dead humans. We'd never seen anything like it. Kegthar looked at each cadet directly. You asked what humans are like in combat. They're like nothing else, because they don't just refuse to surrender, they refuse to let each other die alone. And that makes them the most dangerous soldiers I've ever faced. The night had grown late on Kepler 7 station. The artificial lighting had dimmed to simulate evening. More patrons had gathered around Kegthar's booth, forming a loose circle of listeners. Word had spread through the station that the old Velkari commander was finally telling his stories. Other veterans stood at the edges, nodding at details they recognized, adding their own silent testimony. Kegthar had gone through most of the bottle now. His movements were still steady, though. Years of practice had given him a high tolerance. Or maybe the memories kept him sober no matter how much he drank. 6 months into the war, he continued, Coalition High Command made a decision. They brought in xenobiologists, scientists who study alien life. The thinking was simple. Understand human biology, find weaknesses, exploit them. End the war quickly. He gestured with his manipulators, the movement sharp and agitated. The xenobiologists came back with their report. I was in the briefing room when they presented it. I'll never forget their faces. They looked afraid. Scientists, people who spend their lives studying life forms, and they looked genuinely afraid of what they'd learned about humans. One of the cadets shifted nervously. What did they find? Everything. They found everything wrong with humans, and all of it made them more dangerous, not less. Kegthar's antennae twitched in remembered frustration. Humans have almost no natural defenses. No armor plating like us Velkari, no venom like Threxians, no ability to regenerate like Kalrathi. They're soft, vulnerable. Their bones break easily. Their skin tears. They can die from infections we wouldn't even notice. He leaned forward. But that's not the important part. The important part is how they evolved. Humans are persistence predators. Do you know what that means? The Threxian cadet shook his head. Most predators in the galaxy are ambush hunters or pack hunters. They strike fast, kill quick, move on. Humans evolved differently. On their world, they hunted by chasing prey. For hours, for days sometimes. Just following, never stopping until their prey collapsed from exhaustion. Then they killed it. Kegthar's voice took on an edge that made the cadets lean back slightly. Humans can run for longer than almost any other species. They have this cooling system, sweating they call it, that lets them keep moving in heat that would kill us. They can go days without sleep if needed. They can eat almost anything to keep their energy up. And most importantly, they never ever stop coming once they start chasing you. He paused to let that sink in. I learned this personally. 8 months into the war, my unit was assigned to jungle warfare on a planet called Verdi 3. Hot, humid, dense vegetation. Perfect for guerrilla fighting. We were tracking a human patrol, 50 soldiers. We had 100. We were certain we'd catch them, eliminate them, secure the sector. Kegthar's voice grew quieter, taking on a haunted quality. They knew we were following them. They left signs, little markers in their language, taunting us, leading us deeper into the jungle. We followed for 6 days. 6 days through terrain that was killing us. The heat, the humidity, the local predators. We were exhausted. Command kept telling us to come back, abort the mission. Our captain refused. He wanted that human patrol eliminated. He stopped, reaching for his drink with a manipulator that trembled slightly. On the 6th day, they hit us. Dawn attack. But here's what broke us. They weren't tired. 6 days of us chasing them through hostile jungle, and when they attacked, they were fresh, alert, fast. We were stumbling from exhaustion. They moved like they'd just woken from a good sleep. How? One of the Velkari cadets asked. How is that possible? They'd been rotating. While half the patrol moved, the other half slept. They'd been taking turns sleeping on the move, carrying each other when needed. For 6 days, we thought we were chasing them to exhaustion, but they were letting us exhaust ourselves. We were the prey. We'd been the prey the whole time. Kegthar drained his glass. They killed 60 of my 100 soldiers in that ambush. The rest of us scattered. I spent 3 days alone in that jungle, trying to get back to base, jumping at every sound. I kept expecting to see them behind me, following, never stopping. That's what humans do. They make you the prey. An older Threxian veteran standing nearby spoke up, his voice rough. "Tell them about Lieutenant Vex, about what happened at Outpost 17. Kexthar nodded slowly. Outpost 17. Coalition forward base, 50 personnel. Humans attacked it with a force of about 20. We drove them off, killed 8 of them, wounded more. Standard engagement. We won." He paused and the silence stretched. 3 of those humans were still alive but badly wounded, too wounded to retreat with their unit. We captured them for medical treatment and interrogation. That's when we learned something else about human biology, something the xenobiologists hadn't mentioned or hadn't understood. Kexthar's antennae drooped. Humans have this thing called an adrenaline response. When they're wounded or afraid or angry, their bodies flood with chemicals that make them stronger, faster, more aggressive. Most species have something similar, but human adrenaline is different. It doesn't just help them escape. It makes them attack. He looked down at his manipulators, flexing them slowly. One of those wounded humans, a male they called Corporal Chen, was missing his left arm, torn off by plasma fire. He should have been unconscious from blood loss. He should have been dying. Lieutenant Vex was standing near him when Chen suddenly lunged, used his remaining arm to grab a piece of debris, started attacking Vex with it. The younger veterans in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Vex was in full combat armor. Chen was dying, one-armed, bleeding out. Chen beat Vex to death anyway. Used that piece of debris like a club. Kept hitting and hitting even after Vex stopped moving. We had to shoot Chen 4 more times before he finally died. His last words, according to the translator, were, "For Earth." Kexthar looked up at the cadets. That's when we understood. Wounded humans are sometimes more dangerous than healthy ones. Their biology turns pain into rage, turns dying into a weapon. We'd learned to be more afraid of wounded humans than healthy ones. The Threxian cadet's voice was small. That's not natural. That's not how biology should work. That's what we thought. But then the xenobiologist explained. Humans evolved on a death world. Earth is classified as a high-threat environment. Everything on their planet tried to kill them for millions of years. Weather, predators, diseases, other humans. Their entire evolution was constant warfare for survival. So their bodies adapted, made them able to keep fighting even when dying, made them dangerous right up until the moment they stopped breathing. Kexthar reached for the bottle again, found it nearly empty. The xenobiologists gave us a name for what humans are. They called them apex persistence predators with berserker trauma response. In simple terms, humans evolved to chase prey until it died, and to fight threats until either the threat died or they did. No middle ground. No surrender instinct. Just hunt or fight until it's over. He poured the last of the bottle into his glass. That's what we were fighting. Not soldiers like us who fight because it's our duty and stop when it's logical. We were fighting creatures who'd evolved to never stop, who'd spent their entire existence as a species learning to kill things that wanted to kill them, who'd turned their own fragility into a reason to fight harder. The old Kalrathi bar owner, Ven, brought over another bottle. Kexthar nodded his thanks. After the reports came back, coalition morale started breaking. Our soldiers started refusing patrols in human-controlled space, started asking for transfers away from human fronts, because we'd realized something terrible. He looked around at all the faces watching him. We'd picked a fight with the galaxy's apex predator, and humans were treating us exactly like their ancestors treated prey on Earth. They were running us down, exhausting us, waiting for us to collapse, and they had all the time in the world because that's what they were built to do. Kexthar raised his glass. To the xenobiologists, who tried to warn us, who told us we were the prey now, who nobody believed until it was too late. He drank, and several other veterans around the booth raised their own glasses in silent acknowledgement of an old, terrible truth. Deep night had settled over Kepler 7 station. Most of the casual drinkers had left. The ones who remained were either veterans who remembered, or young soldiers who needed to understand. Kexthar's booth had become something like a shrine, a place where truth was being spoken about things the Academy didn't teach. The old Velkari commander stared into his glass, watching the liquid catch the dim light. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made even the veterans lean closer. 1 year into the war, Coalition intelligence captured a human data facility, classified archives, military plans, cultural databases. We thought we'd found the key to understanding them, to predicting them, to defeating them. He clicked his mandibles in what might have been bitter amusement. What we found was worse than any weapon. We found their stories. Thousands and thousands of stories. Humans have been imagining alien contact for centuries. Hundreds of years before they achieved faster-than-light travel, they were writing fiction about meeting other species, about fighting other species. One of the Velkari cadets frowned. Fiction? Stories? How is that useful in war? That's what our commanders thought, until the analysts actually read the stories, watched the human visual media, studied their games and simulations. Kexthar's antennae twitched. Humans had imagined every possible first contact scenario. Friendly aliens. Hostile aliens. Aliens who wanted to trade. Aliens who wanted to conquer. Aliens who wanted to eat them. Aliens who wanted to steal their resources. Aliens who wanted to destroy them for existing. He paused, letting that sink in. For every scenario, they'd imagined how to fight it, how to resist, how to win even when losing. They'd been practicing for us, for centuries. In their minds, in their culture, in their collective imagination, they'd already fought 1,000 alien invasions, and in their stories, humanity always survived. Kexthar gestured with multiple manipulators, the movement encompassing something vast and incomprehensible. We found stories where humans beat aliens with superior technology, stories where they survived extinction-level attacks, stories where they turned their own weakness into advantages, stories where they lost everything but kept fighting anyway. And these weren't just military tales. These were popular culture, children's stories, entertainment. Humans had been culturally preparing for us since before they left their home world. The Threxian cadets' eyes were wide. They expected us? Not us specifically. But they expected someone, something. They'd lived their entire modern history assuming that one day, something from the stars would come. And they decided collectively as a species that whatever came, they would survive it, would fight it, would never yield to it. Kexthar drank, his movement slow and deliberate. That's when Coalition Command started understanding what we were really fighting. Not just human soldiers, not just human biology. We were fighting human culture, human psychology, human determination that had been built over thousands of years of surviving their death world and hundreds of years of imagining how to survive beyond it. He leaned back, his scarred carapace catching the light. The war went on for 2 more years after that discovery. We kept winning battles, kept taking territory, kept destroying human fleets, but human resistance kept growing. Every planet we took needed more troops to hold. Every system we conquered became a source of guerrilla attacks. We were winning strategically and losing practically. An older veteran, a Kalradi with burn scars across half his body, spoke from the crowd. Tell them about the peace talks, about what the humans brought. Kexthar's antennae drooped even further, a sign of deep emotion in Velkari body language. 3 years in, Coalition High Command finally acknowledged we couldn't win, not in any meaningful sense. We could maybe kill all the humans, but it would cost us everything. So they called for negotiations, peace talks on neutral ground. I was there, part of the Military Advisory Council. He refilled his glass, his movements showing his age now. Human diplomats arrived with a small delegation. No weapons, as agreed, but they brought data. Said they wanted to show us something before negotiations began. Our commanders agreed, thinking it was military intelligence or strategic positions. Show of good faith. Kexthar's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. They showed us Earth, not military installations, not fleet positions, Earth, their home, cities full of civilians, children playing in parks, musicians performing, artists creating, families gathering, old humans tending gardens, young humans learning in schools. The everyday life of their species. He stopped, and for a moment the only sound was the quiet hum of the station's environmental systems. Beautiful. It was beautiful. Humans had taken a death world and made it into something magnificent, and they showed it to us without any commentary. Just let us watch. Let us see what we were trying to destroy. Let us understand what humans were protecting. One of the cadets started to speak, but Kexthar held up a manipulator for silence. Then they showed us the second part. Human military production over the past 3 years. Ship construction, weapons development, training facilities, all of it. They showed us that they'd converted 40% of their economy to war production. That they were conscripting soldiers faster than we could kill them. That they'd militarized their entire civilization. His voice grew even quieter. And then the human diplomat, an older female named Ambassador Chen, she said something I will never forget. She said, "This is what we are protecting. This is what we will burn the galaxy down to protect. We will not surrender. We will not yield. We will fight you until there is nothing left of us or nothing left of you. We will make the galaxy empty before we let you take Earth." The silence in the bar was absolute. She meant it. We could see in her eyes, in the faces of every human diplomat there, that she meant every word. They weren't bluffing. They weren't posturing. They were telling us the simple truth. Humans would commit xenocide, would kill every coalition species, would destroy themselves in the process if necessary, but they would not let us take their home. Cakestar finally looked up, meeting the eyes of the cadets. That's when we understood what we'd done. We'd threatened their home. We'd triggered every cultural narrative they'd built over centuries. We'd made ourselves the enemy in every story they'd ever told. And in those stories, the enemy always lost because humanity never stopped fighting. He drank, his movements shaky now. Coalition High Command reviewed the data the humans provided, confirmed it was accurate, ran probability simulations. Every scenario ended the same way. Either we exterminated humanity at the cost of most coalition species, or we made peace. There was no middle ground. No conditional surrender. No negotiated defeat. Just total war or peace. The old Kalrathi veteran stepped closer. "Tell them the rest. About what you learned after." Cakestar nodded slowly. Peace was declared 1 week later. Borders established. Reparations on both sides. Prisoner exchanges. All very civilized after 3 years of horror. I was assigned to the prisoner exchange detail. Had to coordinate with human officers. Face-to-face meetings. His antennae trembled. The humans were kind, professional, polite. Treated us with respect. Made sure our prisoners were returned healthy. Thanked us for our cooperation. I met a human soldier, a young male who'd fought at Torrens Moon. Same battle where I got this scar. We talked, he showed me pictures of his family. His home, his dog. That's a creature they keep as companions. He was gentle with it. Loved it. Cakestar's voice cracked slightly. That's when I really understood. The monsters we'd fought, the demons who wouldn't surrender, who killed themselves rather than yield, who used their own dying bodies as weapons. They weren't monsters. They were just people protecting their home, protecting their families, their dogs, their parks and cities and children. He looked around at all the faces watching him. The worst part isn't that we fought them. The worst part is that we made them become what they became. We threatened their home, and we turned regular people into the monsters we deserved to face. Every human who died fighting us could have been that gentle soldier, showing pictures of his dog. Every human who killed themselves rather than surrender could have been Ambassador Chen, a grandmother who just wanted her grandchildren to grow up safe. Cakestar's voice strengthened slightly. After the war, I couldn't sleep. Still can't most nights. Not because of the humans I killed. Because of the humans I met after. Because I realized we'd made them choose between their nature and their survival. And they chose survival, and I would have done the same thing. He raised his glass one more time. That's what humans are like in combat. They're like us. Like anyone protecting their home, just more determined, more willing to pay the price, more committed to survival. They're not special or different or alien. They're just absolutely, completely unwilling to let their home die, and they'll become whatever they need to become to prevent that. The cadets sat in stunned silence. Around the bar, veterans nodded, their own memories of the war heavy in the air. Cakestar finished his drink and set the glass down with finality. Now you know. Now you understand what the Academy doesn't teach. Not because it's secret. Because it's shameful. We started a war with people who would rather die than lose their home, and we're lucky they let us survive our mistake. The first hints of artificial dawn were beginning to lighten the viewports of Kepler 7 station. The bar was nearly empty now. Most had drifted away, carrying with them stories they'd share quietly with others. Only the 3 cadets remained in the booth with Cakestar, along with a handful of veterans who stood nearby like silent guardians of unwanted memories. Cakestar had gone quiet for a long time, staring at his empty glass. When he finally spoke again, his voice was different. Older somehow. More tired, 15 years. That's how long it's been since the war ended. 15 years of peace. You 3, you've grown up in this peace. You think you understand it because you've studied it in academy classes. You don't. Nobody who wasn't there can understand what that peace really means. He looked at the young Threxian cadet, who'd been the first to approach him hours ago. You asked me what humans are like in combat. I've told you. They're relentless, creative, willing to die for each other and their home. But that's not really what you wanted to know, is it? You wanted to know if they're the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The cadet nodded slowly, almost afraid to move. Kexthar's antennae straightened slightly, the first sign of different emotion he'd shown all night. No, they're not the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They're the most dangerous species when you threaten them. That's the distinction that matters. That's what I've spent 15 years understanding. He gestured toward the viewport where ships could be seen docked at the station. After the war, humans joined the coalition as full members, equal partners. They sent aid to worlds that had been damaged in the fighting. Their engineers helped rebuild stations we'd destroyed. Their doctors treated coalition wounded. Their diplomats worked to establish trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. They became exactly what they'd wanted to be when they first achieved faster-than-light travel. Friends, allies, partners. One of the Velkari cadets spoke quietly. But after everything that happened, how could they? How could you all just become allies? Because humans understand something we'd forgotten. War isn't the natural state. Peace is what everyone wants. Humans fought us because they had to, not because they wanted to. Once we stopped threatening them, they went back to being what they actually are. Curious, social, creative people who want to explore and build and learn. Kexthar's voice carried something that might have been admiration. I've worked with human engineers on 3 different projects since the war. They're brilliant, innovative. They think in ways we don't, come up with solutions nobody else considers. Their medical advances have saved thousands of coalition citizens. Their art, their music, their literature, all of it has enriched our culture. That's who humans are. The warriors we fought were just one face they can wear when they must. The old Kalrathi veteran, Ven, moved closer to the booth. Tell them why you're really telling these stories tonight. Tell them the truth. Kexthar's antennae drooped again, but he nodded. 1 year ago, deep space monitoring stations detected something. Far out beyond coalition space, beyond the frontier, beyond anywhere we've ever explored. Something big. Something moving. Not like a natural phenomenon. Moving with purpose, heading toward the galaxy. The temperature in the bar seemed to drop despite the environmental controls. Coalition scientists have been studying it for a year now, trying to understand what it is. The data we have is limited, but what we know is enough. It's a fleet. A massive fleet. Thousands of ships, maybe more. And they're not friendly. Every probe we've sent toward them has been destroyed. Every communication attempt has been ignored. They're coming, and they're hostile. The 3 cadets sat frozen, understanding dawning in their eyes. Coalition High Command is terrified. They're making evacuation plans, identifying which systems to abandon first, calculating how far we can retreat before we run out of space, discussing surrender terms for a species we haven't even made contact with yet. Kexthar's voice took on an edge. I attended one of those planning sessions. Sat there listening to admirals and counselors talk about managed retreat, about acceptable losses, about negotiating for the survival of some coalition species, even if others have to be sacrificed. Standard strategic thinking. Logical. Practical. He paused, and something like a smile crossed his mandibles. Then the human representative spoke. Ambassador Patterson. He's new, young. Wasn't even born when the war happened. He listened to all the retreat plans, all the surrender scenarios, all the calculations of acceptable losses. Then he said something that made the entire room go silent. Kexthar leaned forward, his voice strengthening. He said, "With respect, we're not retreating. We're not surrendering. We're not negotiating. We're stopping them." Just like that. Like it was the most obvious thing in the galaxy. The coalition commanders tried to explain the numbers to him. How many ships were coming, how much firepower they probably had, how many systems they could overwhelm before we could mount an effective defense. The old Velkari's antennae were fully upright now, trembling slightly. Ambassador Patterson listened politely. Then he pulled up human fleet deployments. Every ship they have. Every soldier they can mobilize. Every weapon they've developed in the 15 years since the war. He showed contingency plans they'd been making since the first probe was destroyed. Battle strategies. Defense positions. Fallback points that weren't retreats but tactical regrouping positions. Kexthar's voice filled with something that sounded like relief. Then he said, "The coalition gave us peace when we needed it. Accepted us as equals when we'd been enemies. We will not abandon our friends because something scary is coming. We will stand. We will fight. And whatever is coming will learn what we taught the Coalition. You do not threaten our home. And now the Coalition is our home too. Silence filled the bar. The kind of silence that comes when something fundamental shifts in understanding. That's when I knew we'd be all right. Not because humans are the best warriors or have the best weapons. Because they'd decided we were worth protecting. That the Coalition was their home now and they protect their home no matter the cost. The young Threxian cadet's voice was barely audible. Are we going to win? Kexthar looked at him for a long moment before answering. I don't know. I don't know what's coming. I don't know if we have enough ships or enough weapons or enough soldiers. But I know this. I fought against humanity once. 15 years ago, I saw what they become when something threatens their home. And I thank the void I will never have to fight them again. Because this time, they're on our side. He stood slowly, his movement stiff after sitting for so many hours. I pity whatever is coming for us. I truly do. Because they're heading toward a coalition that includes humanity. They're heading toward a species that doesn't understand surrender. That will chase them across the galaxy if needed. That will turn their own deaths into weapons if they must. That will fight until there's nothing left because that's what they're built to do. Kexthar looked out the viewport, where human warships could be seen joining the Coalition fleet formations. Their hulls were painted with new insignia, Coalition markings alongside human symbols, ships built for peace now preparing for war. I told you these stories tonight because you asked what humans are like in combat, but that's not why I really told them. I told them so you'd understand what it means that humans are fighting with us this time instead of against us. So you'd know that whatever is coming, we have allies who will never stop, who will never yield, who will protect the Coalition the same way they protected Earth. He picked up his glass one final time, found it empty, and set it down. The Academy will teach you tactics and strategy, but I've taught you something more important tonight. I've taught you what it means to have humanity as your ally instead of your enemy. What it means to have warriors who fight not because it's logical or strategic, but because they've decided you're worth dying for. Kexthar moved toward the door, his gait unsteady from age and alcohol and memories. He paused at the threshold, looking back at the three cadets who were no longer quite so young as they'd been when the night began. You wanted to know about humans in combat. Here's the final truth. Humans don't fight to win. They fight until there's nothing left to fight. And sometimes, not even then, that terrified me when they were my enemies. It comforts me now that they're my friends. Because whatever's coming, it's not coming for a divided galaxy. It's coming for a coalition that includes Earth. And that makes all the difference. He left then, walking out into the artificial dawn of the station. Behind him, the three cadets sat in silence, processing everything they'd heard. Around them, other veterans nodded and dispersed, returning to their own lives and their own memories. Outside the viewport, human ships continued to arrive, joining the defense fleet, taking up positions alongside coalition vessels, preparing for whatever was coming from the dark between the stars. And somewhere deep in coalition command, human officers were making plans. Not retreat plans, not surrender terms, plans to stand and fight, plans to protect their home, because now their home was the entire galaxy, and they would defend every bit of it with the same ferocity they'd once used to defend Earth. The cadet Telm, the young Threxian who'd first approached Kexthar so many hours ago, finally spoke to his companions.